All right, so let me call the meeting to order. It's July 8th, 2021, New York Coalition for Open Government. And I want to welcome everyone. And I do see that we have some, at least one new face here. So I usually like to start, not to put you on the spot, but Jennifer Borg, who I saw earlier today, became a member. And I believe Jennifer is an attorney and a Yale professor, the Yale Law School professor, if I'm correct. So Jennifer, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit.
Not a professor, I wish. No, so hi everyone, thanks for including me. I am a visiting clinical instructor at Yale in the Media Freedom Information and Access Clinic. And this next coming semester, this will be my fourth semester. This upcoming semester, I'm supervising documentary filmmakers with law students. And I was in-house counsel for 22 years at North Jersey Media Group, which published the flagship, the Bergen Record. For many of you may know the Bergen Record newspaper. So we had 50 weeklies and 2 dailies. And I'm also affiliated as of counsel with Pashman Stein, where I specialize in media law. And have both New York and New Jersey clients. I'm licensed in New York, New Jersey, and DC, and do a lot of pro bono work for journalists because that's kind of the name of the game now, and for media organizations. And very interested in tonight's topic when it comes to, I think there were some good things, well, a few good things that came out of COVID, and I certainly think that the recording of meetings is certainly one of them. So thanks for including me, and I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for joining us. I'm always looking for email addresses to spam, and I think I saw your name somewhere as speaking somewhere, and I said, well, I'll shoot her an email, and maybe this is something she's interested in.
Here I am, and I just joined and sent in my money about an hour ago, so thank you. It worked. I'll spread the word.
All righty. And then I saw there was also a new name, Tim Henderson, but he seems to be dropping in and out. So maybe he's having difficulty joining us. And if he gets back on later, I'll have him introduce himself. So why don't we start? The first item on our agenda is the meeting minutes from the last meeting. So hopefully everybody has this packet of documents that I emailed out for today's meeting, which included the minutes. And unless someone has any questions, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from one of our board members.
I make a motion to approve.
All right, motion by Maria. Is there a second?
Second. Second by Janet.
All right, so a second to approving the minutes by Janet. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So I see Tim Henderson, I see you've been trying to join us. Looks like you've been having some difficulties getting on and off. And we usually have new people introduce themselves, so I don't mean to put you on the spot. But if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your interest in open government, that would be great.
Sure, absolutely. How's my audio? Can everyone hear me?
Good.
Good. I'll apologize for ahead of time. I'm sure we're all used to it by now, but we might have 3 young screaming kids come in here. So bear with me with that. So yeah, my name's Tim Henderson. I work for an organization, some of you might be aware of it, called the New York Foundation for Fair Contracting. I won't give you the go too deep into that, but we're a watchdog group, goody two-shoe organized, not for profit, that keeps our eye on some bad actors in public works or public work construction. And when I was first brought on, my colleagues, Matt Kent and Candace Morrison, put me on, got me on the email list, and I saw with the open government. But one of the issues that caught my eye, which was on the agenda for here, is the ability for, or the, not the ability, but the requirement for government bodies to provide meeting minutes, to continue the online access. And a small part of my daily tasks, I'm hunting, I'm trying to figure out bid openings, right? And in some cases, my organization, we, not to dive in too deep, we sometimes when we see a contractor that's a bad actor that we know has a bad history, we try to intercede on that. And when I call these public bodies for the public bid opening, they sometimes are guarded with that information, or sometimes they'll tell me that they will provide that information after the fact, after the project has been awarded. So for us that are trying to say, hey, you should look into this before you award it to the contractor, before you award it, that doesn't do anything for us, knowing the bid results after the fact. So that's a small thing of why I'm interested with this, but I think open government, real true transparency, not this, this little, fake transparency where they, they'll say, oh, we'll provide you that information, but when you can't really use that information, or after the fact, or when you can't hold anyone accountable for that information, we'll give it to you then. It's an important mission to fight for transparency, especially when it comes to government dollars. This is taxpayers' money. It shouldn't be taken for granted.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk a little bit in a minute about that meeting minute legislation. So next item on our agenda is our treasurer's report. Janet Vito, our treasurer, in the meeting documents is a report from her, and I'll let her give an overview on that.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see everyone again. Well, we have good news. We were able to make our deposits for 1 month of $770, thanks to a nice donation of $500 and several new memberships. So that brings our grand total as of June 30th to $2,958.12.
And I think as of June 30th, we had 48 members, but since then we've added a few. So we're over 50 paid members, which is great. We're continuing to grow.
We thank everyone for their participation with us and being part of our group. It's great to have all the diversity, and thank you for being with us. Any
questions on the treasurer's report?
I just had a question. Is there a membership list that's going to be available with our recordings, or is that something we're not sharing?
No, I can certainly send out an email of who all the members are and email addresses in case, people want that or want to connect with each other.
That would be great. Thank you, Paul.
Someone want to make a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Larry Vito. Is there a second? Second by Sonia. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So next item on our agenda is Albany legislation. So this is really the first year that we wade into getting involved with Albany legislation. And with it being our first effort, we had some success in getting 2 bills passed by the New York State Legislature, passed both by the Assembly and the Senate, that are now going to be sent to the governor. And neither bill is certainly perfect, but both bills are a step forward in the right direction. and I'll talk about them in a second. My understanding is the way this works is bills that are passed by the legislature, they don't immediately send to the governor. They kind of send them in batches. There's hundreds of bills that get passed. So they kind of send, a few each month. And I guess the way it works is they will all be signed by the end of the year. And it seems to pick up more activity as we get towards the end of the year. So it's probably likely that these won't be signed by the governor if they are signed by, till November or December. So I'll have to monitor that and keep our eye on that. But the two bills that have been passed, one regarding meeting minutes. Right now, the New York State Open Meetings Law does not require that you have to post meeting minutes online. A lot of places do it, which is great, but it's not a requirement to do so. And that was one of the changes we made in the law. The way this law is worded, though, says that you can post meeting minutes or video recordings. I personally don't like the idea of posting video recordings because, scrolling through a 2 or 3 hour meeting to find what happened is much harder, in my opinion, than reading 5 to 10 pages of meeting minutes. So.
Can I just add a comment on that?
Sure.
So that's assuming that the minutes are really well done. Oftentimes they're so scant that they're meaningless. So it's kind of nice to have both so that you can find out where it is.
Why can't we have both? But the law says you could do one or the other.
Right.
You can post written minutes or just post a video. I think most places that are posting meeting minutes will probably continue to do so. But we'll have to see first if the governor signs it. And then secondly, if it brings about any big change or not, as far as what people post. Any other comments on that? Patricia?
Yeah, I just want to say that with the meeting minutes, they are required to put in the resolutions that were voted on, and that's a really quick index. So they're required to do that, but then of course the language they put in there is at the discretion of them. So I totally get your pain, but at least the resolutions are there, how they're voted on.
Right, I think that's the
That
other important part is I think there should be a written record of who attended, who voted how. While you can see that in a video, I just think it's more cumbersome. But
Exactly. I agree.
So we'll have to see. The second somebody else on that?
Yeah, one of the pieces is that the minutes would be available through the Freedom of Information Law, of course, but you have to know when they're available. So you can request it, and then they have to send you an email copy, assuming they keep them in an electronic form. So they are available, but it's, as I say, another step. You can't see them easily.
Right, I mean, that's the other point is I assume most people are going to keep meeting minutes. So, it shouldn't be hard to post them. Even if they do a video, I assume somewhere there are still written meeting minutes. But hopefully they'll be posted instead of having to file a, FOIL request. Sonia, you got to unmute yourself.
Okay. I don't know, maybe Jennifer mentioned it. I have experience in my own community where when they do the minutes, they are not accurate. And I'm wondering in our if the state law says when a municipality or the state legislature, county legislature, when they do minutes, does it announce it has to be accurate? And another following up, when the person makes that these are the minutes, he certifies this is an accurate copy, transcript of what was said. So what I'm saying, I have an issue, and I think I heard others say, some say, sometimes the minutes do not reflect what was said accuracy.
Well, and that happens, and I think that's part of the argument that was made as far as video recordings are, an accurate record of what occurred. And now it's real easy nowadays just to press a button and you can get a written transcript of a meeting as well. But some places, as you point out, are more detailed in the minutes they write. Some are, 30 pages long, some are 5 pages long. It's really, there's no specific requirement. It's up to the town clerk, city clerk, legislature clerk. They have the power to draft the minutes. They should certainly be accurate, but,
So maybe if they're not, the party will say this is not accurate at the next meeting, add that in. I think it's an important thing, and that's why I brought it up, and I think, I don't know if it was Jennifer, somebody mentioned it. I'd like to see that. I know they do it when there's like a lot of money, the clerk will sign it, this is the truth. I'd like to see it with minutes, but at least let's have minutes.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a stronger bill on the attending. I'd like to see a stronger, I thought some years back, within 72 hours of the municipality had to notify the citizens when there was going to be a meeting. Has that gone by the wayside or what?
no, that's still the case.
Well, why are we saying at least 48 hours and not just repeating? We want to see 72 hours.
No, well, you're taking us now to the second legislation. The second legislation is the posting of meeting documents online. Right now, the law says, to the extent practicable, I love that word, meeting documents should be posted online. It does not specify any time period. There have been court decisions where documents were posted online a few hours before the meeting and the court said, hey, it says to the best you can. They put it up a few hours before the meeting, that the law doesn't require anything more. So this change in the law at least says, if you're going to post meeting documents, you should at least do it 24 hours before the meeting. I would certainly prefer 48 or 72, but 24 hours is at least a step forward. And the law states, it still states to the extent practicable, which I'd rather get that language removed. To me, there's no practicable reason if you have a website as to why meeting documents cannot be posted online. One of the things that was removed from the law with this new bill is it says to the extent practicable as determined by the agency. They removed that language as determined by the agency. So at least says now you have to post meeting documents 24 hours before to the extent practicable, but we removed as determined by the agency.
That's good.
So again, it's not perfect, but it's a step forward. So we'll have to see if the governor signs both of those bills. I haven't heard of any real opposition against them. They both passed the legislature unanimously. So I think it'll happen. So we'll have to see. Any more comments on that, Maria?
I just had a comment. Well, first of all, I think it's, as you indicated before, it's better to get half a loaf than no loaf. And I think taking off that caveat about to the extent practical to be determined by the agency, that's like, saying your mother decides whether you go ice skating, So I think that was good that that part was omitted. But I just wanted to clarify something. You indicated that it's either video or minutes, correct?
Right.
But what about if there's no video and they just do audio? And then, as you indicated, it can be quite cumbersome going through, 2 hours of, what a person said. And then the clerk does a summary of the person speaking. So in other words, if you appear and you ask a question and then they paraphrase what you've said, the other problem that comes up is the corrections are not allowed by the public. Only the town board can do
Right.
this. Is that like a legitimate thing? So
Yeah, I mean, that's an issue. Only the town board can really make a motion to correct the minutes. I mean, if there's a public comment period, you can bring it up, but you know, as you say, the public doesn't have any right to amend the minutes. You can certainly point out that there was, you know, an error.
So that's a legitimate thing. Okay. And
Yeah.
so then if it's an audio and no video, does that still apply to the first bill?
I can't remember if it says audio or video, but you probably could post the audio or the meeting minutes. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
There's another piece in there too, is that going back to the correction of the minutes, is that one way to do it would be to send a letter. If you can't go to the meeting or they don't allow public comment at the meeting, is to send a letter to the board as a whole, asking that it be entered into the minutes of your objections to what actually occurred. And so I'm not sure, you know, the legalities of all of that they have to do that, but it is correspondence to the board, not to an individual, but to the board. And so therefore, they usually have correspondence listed also in regard to the pieces. Another piece that's not normal, which isn't known a lot, is that you don't have to wait for the minutes to come out and be approved before they're available. They have to make them available in written form within 2 weeks from the date of the meeting. There's no such thing as they're not real minutes yet because they haven't been approved. Whatever's been prepared has to be available within 2 weeks.
Right, that's a good point. Like, we encourage local governments to post draft minutes. You don't have to wait until the next meeting to approve them and then post them. You can post them in a draft format, and rarely are they changed in any event. Mary.
Yes, a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. The aspect of having better requirements for minutes that are posted. One aspect is I've noticed, at least on our local level, is there's no detail or substance to any public comment that may go on during the meeting. Often there's some very good issues and very good answers that are received during that time, but we have minutes that say, you know, many questions were asked and answered accordingly, and that's all that appears in the minutes. So something like that, a way to address that and maybe put some actual requirements on it. The consequences also for non-compliance. I'm not really sure what avenues there are, if there are any. So that would be another aspect of, you know, if they're not complying with the minute requirements or the posting requirements, what kind of consequences or avenue is that? And also experiencing with correcting the minutes. I've actually been in a city council meeting where one of the council members did not want to approve the minutes because they were not an accurate accounting of what happened at the previous meeting. And basically because the other council members were kind of like, yeah, oh, okay, well, I'm glad you feel that way, and then they just moved on. So there's really no way of addressing that, or, you know, that I'm aware of. So that's just a couple of comments that I wanted to put in there for discussion.
No, you make a good point regarding the public comments. I see a lot of meeting minutes that will just say, you know, Paul Wolf spoke, or, you know, but it doesn't say, you know, what I talked about, what I said. And it's even worse in Niagara County, the legislature, when I've gone to speak at their meetings, the public comment occurs after the meeting's been adjourned. So there's not even any record that anyone spoke or what they said. So that's a good point. And then as far as what the consequences are for violating it, unfortunately in New York, the only consequences are a citizen lawsuit, which is, you know, expensive and rarely happens. You know, other states, if we've talked about, the Attorney General has the authority to investigate and fine, and we don't have that in New York. So that's certainly one of the things we want to work towards, is some type of enforcement mechanism. But let me move on. So other legislation. And
Hey, one thing, Paul, I had my hand up, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You know, I think this goes into, you know, something that we,
You gotta fix
transparency
your
is-
camera, Joe. You gotta fix your camera. All I see is your mouth. There you go.
okay, so, yeah, I like to lean forward. So, you know, this issue of the meeting minutes or the video, you know, I think this obviously needs to be unified. It needs to be both, but even more than that, you know, these meeting minute items really should have a timestamp in the video as to where they occur. And even more than that, a link. You know, if you go to, like, say, YouTube, the better channels, they always have, you know, this is what happened at what time, not just that's what happened. It's a really small detail, but it saves a lot of time. And I think it's really important. And, you know, it just shows that you care about what you're doing as a city clerk. I just, you know, honestly, I think a lot of these clerks in the small towns and the cities, they're just political appointments. They're not really qualified for the jobs. They really have no skills. And, you know, they just give these jobs to whoever, you know, is in the party. So we're really up against on the local level. And that's why we need these laws, because until we get better laws, we're not going to get better city clerks and town clerks.
And we're shooting for transparency. We're talking about basic things. Transparency.
All right, well, I'm gonna not talk about the other two bills listed on our agenda because we have Assembly Member McMahon who's joined us, and I'll introduce her later to talk about her legislation. So let me move on to number 4 on the agenda, which is the Onondaga County Legislature use of private email accounts. So I got contacted by some students from Syracuse University. They have a great journalism program there. And they have a great class there where they have investigative journalism class where the professor has each of the students do a FOIL request and in teams. So this is a team of 2 or 3 students, and they write a news article about what happened. They produce a video. So in the email I sent out was a link to the news article and the video, and they did a really great job on this video they put together. It was very well done. But they interviewed me as part of that, and they did a FOIL request. They found out that most of the county legislators in Onondaga County, Syracuse area, they're part-time legislators, that they have listed on their legislature webpage, 14 out of 17 or something like that had private email addresses. And so, I mean, that's a concern. You really shouldn't be conducting public business through a private email, because when you go to FOIL those emails, are they still there? You know, are they archived or maintained in any way? So they learned an early lesson in life in that the legislature denied their FOIL request, saying, these are private emails and we don't have to provide them to you. And you got to be more specific as far as what you're asking for. They asked for only a week's worth of email. They wanted them to specify, well, what particular subject do you want? And they said, no subject. I just want to see all the emails, you know, not your personal emails, but emails regarding government business that you sent or received from your account the past week or for a week in time. And that request was denied, and most of their FOIL requests were denied and delayed. So it was a rude lesson for journalism students as to how this works.
Hey, Paul, doesn't Newhouse have like lawyers and whatnot? Are they going to push back against that themselves?
Yeah, I don't know.
They're a pretty well-funded operation over there.
I don't know if they have a legal clinic there, but
I mean, they do have a law school.
they do. So we sent a letter, you know, following up with their reporting, asking the chairman of the state legislature, and I copied the news media, but nobody seemed to pick up on it, unfortunately, asking them, well, what are you going to do about this? And the students pointed out that all the surrounding counties have government email addresses, that it's only Onondaga in their immediate area that operate with private emails. So we sent a letter saying, look, this should really be changed. This is not a good way to conduct business. And I have not received a response from the legislature chair. So I'm going to follow up again, and I'll notify the news media again, and hopefully somebody will put some pressure on them and make an issue about it. But this might be something we take a look at in a future report. Maybe we could take a look at other, you know, city councils or county legislatures. Are they, you know, doing something similar?
You know, I would think that they would want to use government emails, because doesn't that open up to, you know, people potentially seeing what's in their private emails?
No,
mean-
the private emails can definitely be withheld. But it's more, I guess it's more cumbersome to, weed through your private emails and pull out what's, government related and what's not, but.
You know, as someone who's running for office right now, it just boggles my mind that they would use a private email for official government related work.
Yeah.
And I think it's a real problem too, as you indicated, Paul. What happens if it's your private email and you're the elected official and you're working on stuff at home, and here comes your son or daughter who's 10 years old and decides to delete a few things. And then I come along and say, hey, can I foil such and such an information? You say, oops, sorry, my son deleted that, or, it's gone. Where I think there has to be more accountability with the public office. You can't just say, well, the city clerk just decided to delete stuff, because that would be
Yeah.
a little bit more onerous.
And the other thing is, what kind of lobbying or discussions are occurring through private emails that will never see the light of day, perhaps,
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I just have one comment. I don't have it memorized, but I think part of the problem also is that New York defines a public record or government record with respect to an agency's record, whereas New Jersey, where I have a lot more experience, it's really any person who's acting in his or her official capacity. So it
Well,
doesn't matter if it's your personal email. In New Jersey has case law on this. If it's your personal email, even your personal computer, it could be your child's computer. If you're conducting official business and that correspondence is related to official business, so it's not saying, sending your spouse an email saying I'll be home at 7:30 or what's for dinner. It's official business that matters. It's not where it generated from or on whose computer or whether it's somebody's personal Gmail.
And that's the same in New York as well. I
But
think
they
a lot
really
of
do
government
talk about
officials-
agency, whether it's held or maintained by the agency.
Well, I think it still applies to local.
It should, which is why you should get it.
Right.
But I think that's why there's been, instances where public agencies in New York have not released it.
Well,
But
and
clearly there should be segregation. Clearly borough attorneys should have a person, or whoever, they should have multiple email addresses, one for work, for certain business and one for not.
Yeah. So.
But and that's also who does the searching, right? Because then the agency doesn't have authority over my Gmail account. So how do they actually search my email for
Right, the clerk.
and then
has
it's not subject, as you said, the retention schedules. And this happened during Bridgegate because there was text messages going back and forth during Bridgegate, and you're actually subject to the third party's retention schedule. So New Jersey may say these types of communications are subject to a 3-year hold, right? So the state has to keep your text messages, but it turns out you're using Verizon as your text messaging. Verizon only keeps them for 30 days.
Right.
So that's another issue.
Yeah.
Because you have that where people text message, particularly during COVID, we're text messaging during remote sessions. I mean, during recorded sessions.
Yep. And I got into an argument with the North Tonawanda town attorney I foiled one time for text messages, and he said, I don't have to ask the council members to provide that to me. I said, yes, you do. You do have to ask.
Right.
But he thought because it was a private phone and it doesn't matter where it's from, if it's government related.
Yeah, Paul, we just had an issue with that. One of our council members foiled another council member's text messages, and he had 2 phones, work phone and a personal phone, and it actually went to Article 78, and she won.
Good.
And provide the text messages to her.
Yeah. So this may be something we could take a look at in a future reports. I think the Syracuse students raised an issue that is probably happening other places as well. So let me move on to number 5, the next item on our agenda. So we try to do 3 or 4 reports each year. We focus on different levels of government. So we did a report earlier this year on school boards. We did one on villages. And now the next one that we're working on is at the county level. We're taking a look at County Board of Elections Every county has a board of elections. We typically take a look at 20 across the state. I did an initial look at websites across the state, and I see very little information on county board of elections. Each county has 2 election commissioners, one a Republican, one a Democrat. And they have meetings on occasion, but I don't see anything on the websites that I look at as far as meeting agendas, meeting minutes, public notices for meetings. So that's one thing we're going to do is all of us are pitching in, working on 1 or 2 different county board of elections. So we're still gathering that information and hope to release that report in the next month or 2. And there's a lot of an attention on board of elections with the elections coming up, and so it'll probably be a timely report that will get some attention as well. Any questions on that? If not, let me go to the next item on our agenda, which is filling our vacant secretary position. So at our last meeting, we had a Vice President, Ed McKee, who resigned due to moving to Florida. And Joe Kissel, who was our secretary, moved into the vice president spot. So we have a vacancy for secretary. And we have an 11-member board. So many people on this call may not be board members, but the way we run our meetings is it's open to everyone, whether you're a board member or not. But because we are a nonprofit corporation, we do have to, just have motions and votes taken by board members, but anyone's free at any time to raise an issue or ask a question. Alberta Roman, who's been a board member of ours for a while now, has expressed an interest in the secretary position. This is a democracy, so it's certainly others can step forward and say, I'd like to be secretary, and we can have a vote on it. But I know Alberta has expressed interest, so I don't know if someone wants to make a motion regarding that.
Paul,
Yes.
Janet Vita will make a motion for Alberta Roman to fill the secretary's position vacated by
right.
Joe Kiesel.
All right.
And I'll second the motion.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for Alberta Roman. Are there any other nominations for anyone or motions? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Before we vote, why don't we have Alberta introduce herself and say a little bit about her involvement with us? Are you there, Alberta? I see you're on the line, but not with your video showing.
On the line.
Are you in a car or something?
No, I'm in my daughter's.
All right, well, your connection is really bad, so we're just gonna skip your saying a speech for now. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of Alberta Roman for secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So with Ed McKee also leaving our board, not only did he give up his vice president position, he also gave up his board seat. Oh, and I should point out that Alberta will serve as secretary for the remainder of the term, which is until January 2023. And we also have a vacant board seat to fill. Right now, our organization started out as the Buffalo Niagara Coalition for Open Government. We started out with the Erie and Niagara counties, and we have since expanded statewide. But right now, all of our board members are from Erie and Niagara County. So we're looking to expand to counties outside of Erie and Niagara. And Mary, who spoke earlier, started attending our meetings in the beginning of the year. And I forget what county Mary is from, but Mary is not from Erie and Niagara. And she has expressed an interest in serving on the board. So if someone wants to make a motion regarding that. Mary Sabala.
Abula.
Tabula. I was gonna ask you how you say that. That's very Italian, I assume.
A little.
Okay.
I thought it was Polish for onion.
It actually is more Polish. It's for
Oh,
onions,
okay.
yes.
Okay,
but
I
I-
make a motion. I make a motion for Mary Sabula.
I'll second that, Paul.
We got a motion by Maria, a second by Joe. Any other motions? All right, so why don't we have Mary say a few words?
Hello, my name is Mary Lou Sabula. I go by Mary, it's easier. I live in Mechanical, New York, which is about 20 minutes outside of Albany. So I'm a little east of you guys. I'm a mother of 5, a grandmother of 6. I have more of a boots on the ground type experience with these type of situations. I worked for the city of Mechanical for 13 years, familiar with all the players. It's experiences with lack of transparency that kind of brought me to this group. I think these type of organizations are very important to vocalize what the issues are, shed light on them, bring them to a lot of the citizens and public that may not know how to find out about these issues they may be experiencing. A lot of people, without knowing, they don't understand. It kind of brings out about a bit of apathy when it comes to government process on a local level. So I think this type of situation and these type of people coming together is very important, and I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Great. So we got a motion and a second. All those in favor, and Mary would likewise, her board seat would go for the balance of the term, which is January 2023. So all those in favor of Mary becoming a board member, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So welcome to the board.
Thank you very much.
So let me move on to the next item on the agenda, number 8, foundation grant for our new website. So we did apply to the Knight Foundation, which is a national foundation that funds a lot of open government groups, just like a $2,800 request to get a new website. That was the lowest estimate I got from some requests I did. Have not heard anything yet about that grant. Right now, we have enough money in our account to pay for the website, although truthfully, I'm a little hesitant to completely drain our account. So I think hope we'll just wait to hear from the Knight Foundation. I don't know how long it will take. And if I see other, or if people know of other foundation opportunities, we can certainly send in an application. The 2 I've sent in, just due to my lack of time, have been kind of one-page, easy, fill out a form application. So I'll keep you posted on that. So next item is our guest speaker, Assembly Member Karen McMahon, who's an Assembly member. I believe actually she's my Assembly member in Amherst, New York. And I'll have the Assembly member tell us a little bit about her background, what she did before a legislator, becoming a legislator, you know, some of the issues that she's focused on. And she has introduced a bill which is on our agenda about continuing the ability to do video meetings. So I will turn it over to Assembly Member McMahon.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you all tonight. I didn't realize that most of you were Western New Yorkers. So hello, neighbors. Good to see you. And I'm just curious what Joe Kissel is running for. You piqued my interest when you said you were running for office.
I'm running for the legislature.
In Niagara County.
In Niagara
And
County.
I don't want to toot my horn too much, but I won my primary a couple of weeks ago with 90% of the vote.
Well,
So that was cute.
good. Excellent. Congratulations. So Paul invited me, as he said, to talk about my background and how I ended up in the assembly. I'm an attorney by training, and I worked for about 30 years as a law clerk in both the state and the federal court system. I was a law clerk to judges of the appellate division, 4th Department, which is the intermediate appellate court in New York State. I was a law clerk to the presiding justice of that court at the time. His name was Mike Dillon, and he was just sort of a legal legend and political legend in Western New York. He was a wonderful guy. And then I switched to federal court and I worked for some other really wonderful judges as well. A magistrate judge, Ed Maxwell, and then the end of my career in federal court, I worked for Judge John Curtin, who people probably remember. He desegregated the Buffalo Public Schools many years ago and created, it was his vision that really created the magnet school system in Buffalo, which, you know, I think the whole desegregation effort had its ups and downs, but I think the magnet school part of it was a huge success. So that was my career before. I left the courts in 2016 when Judge Curtin retired. He was a senior judge. He was about, I believe he was 93 years old when he retired. So he was just kind of an energizer bunny. And then in 2016, I did a little private practice. My husband's also a lawyer. He has his own practice. He represents parents of kids with disabilities and special education matters. So I did a little of that, trying to figure out what my next move was. Was I just going to work part-time? Was I going to do something else? And I kind of fell into politics. I worked on a campaign for our town supervisor here in Amherst. And I found that the more you volunteer on a campaign, the more work they give you. So I got pretty involved in it. And then the following year in 2018, I decided to run for the assembly. I just was sort of always disappointed in my assemblyman. And I thought, well, maybe I could do a better job. So I challenged a 7-year incumbent and I won. It was incredibly exciting. And it was just a new chapter for me. I hadn't worked in the legislative branch at all. So many people in the assembly did work as staff. So I felt, you know, and then they just sort of throw you in the deep end too. There's really no training. So it was a completely new experience for me. Always interesting, always exciting, but very different. So that brings me to where I am now. I was elected in 2018. I was reelected in 2020. And I have to say, it's a tremendous privilege for me to be able to represent the people of my hometown. I grew up in Amherst. I raised my family here. My kids went to school here. I went to school here. And so I feel like my roots are pretty deep and I understand my community really well. I also represent Pendleton, which is a much smaller part of the district. Maybe not geographically, but, you know, population wise. But Amherst is the lion's share of it. And that's, I feel like I know it pretty well because it is my hometown. And of course, so I was in there for a year. And then at the beginning of our second legislative year, of course, the COVID pandemic hit. So things were very different and just full of unknowns. It was a huge challenge. And a lot of my work from March 2020 for, almost a whole year was just really focusing on constituent concerns and helping people get unemployment and get their driver's license. You know, people were worrying about their driver's licenses and their vehicles registered and, you know, just like kind of getting through the day-to-day of the COVID pandemic. It was challenging, but really, really rewarding, and that I felt I could make a difference in people's everyday lives. I made calls to senior citizens in the beginning, just, you know, how are you doing? Are you able to get groceries? Do you need hand sanitizer and masks? And, you know, I think we kind of forget how really uncertain things were at the beginning. And, you know, nobody really knew, like, it was hard to get a COVID test. It was hard to get hand sanitizer. And so it was really good to be able to help people kind of navigate that crisis in their lives. So as a part of the pandemic, you know, we found that technology enabled us to do certain things perhaps more easily or more efficiently. I hope you can't hear, my dogs are barking.
That's all
Someone
right.
must be at the door. I apologize. We got a pandemic dog and so did my daughter, and the two of them are both like making a racket here today. But I digress. Anyway, back to the pandemic. So we found that there are certain things that we could use technology to help us. And one of the things was meetings, public meetings. And I remember talking to Brian Culpa, our town supervisor, about the executive order. And he said that participation at town meetings was really increased because people were able to tune in on Zoom and be a part of the meeting. You know, people who, you know, moms with little kids who can't generally get out at night, or I have a neighbor who's caring for his wife with MS. He really wants to be involved, but he can't really leave the house. You know, he's got to be with his wife. And so I had another bill that actually extended the executive order for the duration of the state of emergency. But of course, the state of emergency has been lifted. And so I guess that bill just evaporated, or that law. It was actually passed, passed in the House. I don't know if it was actually signed by the governor. I don't think it was, because then the state of emergency was lifted. But the Conference of Mayors reached out to a colleague of mine who was a former mayor. He was the mayor of Troy, I believe, John McDonald. And they approached him with the idea of making this a permanent thing. And John said to them, well, I think Karen has that bill. Of course, mine was just for the duration of the pandemic, but he put me in touch with them and with my legislative director. And we came up with this bill to allow the municipalities to continue with the remote meetings. And it was just, we just got it in at the end of the session, just got a number. We really haven't been able to do a lot of advocacy for it just yet, but the Conference of Mayors is very solidly behind it. And, you know, we'll probably be doing a little more outreach for Assembly co-sponsors. We do have a Senate sponsor. And, you know, if we find, like, if I think, Paul, you spoke positively of it, you know, if we can find other good government groups who would support it, then, you know, we can make a push to make this part of our normal course of events in government, in open government.
Great. So, you know, I think remote meetings have been great. I mean, as you pointed out, I saw there were 17,000 people that watched a Buffalo Common Council meeting through Facebook Live.
Wow.
Up in Ogdensburg, New York, which is a small community of like 10,000 people. I know 1,000 people signed up to watch a city council meeting. So it's been really interesting, because there's always been complaints that no one's interested, no one cares. And, you know, maybe very few people do physically go to a meeting, but with technology, it has really shown that people do care. People are interested.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's been great. Now, the downside that I've experienced is a lot of communities weren't very good about public comments, at least in the beginning. I think it's gotten better, but you know, as we've pointed out, it's kind of crazy. The open meetings law does not mandate that you have to hear from the public. Most places do it, but they don't mandate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know legislator Paulin has a bill that, you know, if there is a public comment during a meeting, you should take remote comments, whether that's by telephone or video. So that would be a nice companion to your legislation, whether the two can be combined or just both passed. That if we are going to have a remote meeting, there should be at least some way to take live comments. What a lot of places did was, you know, send an email, which I didn't think was, you know, better than nothing, but not great. You should be able to, you know, Zoom video live your comment or phone live. So that's one point. And then the second point is I don't know why we can't do both. And I don't know if your legislation allows us to do both. Can we do an in-person meeting that's live streamed and video recorded and posted online?
Yes. Yeah, that would be, yeah, in my bill. It
on the
could be a
mechanics
live
of-
meeting. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I have a question on the mechanics of that. Because I hear from some seniors that they don't want to go, they don't want to be on Zoom or Facebook.
Mhm,
So what are the mechanics? So I think the hybrid is phenomenal,
mhm.
right? Somebody can be on vacation or they can look at the recording a day later because the reporters I work with reporters, so they're on deadline, what have you. But how do you, is everybody now going to have a laptop in front of them? And I don't know how it would work. I don't know how you do a hybrid that you have one, what's the technology for people can ask questions live from while they're in person, and yet people can do it on, say we're using Zoom, because that's the one I'm most familiar with. And then does each member of the council have a laptop in front of them so that they're talking into the people who are on Zoom, but then the people, quote unquote, in the audience? I just don't know how it works.
Well, I'd like to hear, I really need to hear from people who do this all the time, or like you, who have specific concerns about the mechanics of it, because I think there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. Like Amy Pollan's bill, when Paul, you brought that up to me in an email, and I looked at it, and actually my legislative director sent it to the Conference of Mayors, and they were concerned about mandating certain technology for some towns. Like there may be fiscal reasons that they just don't like unfunded mandates, and obviously we understand why. So another one of my colleagues brought up a few other concerns about comments, and so I'm definitely open to amending this, to making it work the best it could, the best we can make it work. I think ideally, maybe it would be live streamed on a website, but you still need a computer, to do that. But maybe people are reluctant to like sign up for a Zoom account, but if you could have it on a computer. But I think it's
Comment on
tough
that.
to mandate a certain technology.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer something on that. We currently, one of the good things that our city council has done is they actually hired an individual. His name is Mike Rubito. He has a Facebook group called Just Stream It Live, and he comes to the city council meetings, and he broadcasts the city council meetings live, and also then posts the video. And he posts it to his own group, and I believe he posts it to the city group. I actually never looked because their website is a little wanky right now, but and it's allowed to be shared and everything else. And I do know that they did dabble with being able to receive live comments, and the fact that those could also be people on the group could also be kind of projected onto a screen at the meeting. So that may give you just a little insight as to some of the options that might be out there.
Yeah, I can't say that the bill's in its final form. I think technology is always changing. We want to make sure that we make it as accessible to as many people as possible. So I'm open to suggestions, ideas, any way to just make it better and more accessible.
I have a
Anything
question.
else? Go ahead, Casey.
I'm not clear in regard to this legislation, from what I'm hearing you say, is permissive to allow a municipality or a local government or a governmental body to basically continue to videotape and stream their law. What prohibits them from doing it now? I don't understand that need, because as I understand it, this is not going to be mandatory. This is going to be permissive, and I'm not sure why it's not permitted now. You already, under the law, are able to, a common citizen can go into a meeting and record a meeting. So why can't a government?
They can use video conferencing. What this does is requires the video to be posted within 5 days. It also requires, so if a member of the public didn't say they didn't have a computer and there wasn't a live meeting, say the meeting was totally remote, someone could request that the video be available to them in another location so that they could view it. And this allows the remote meeting. So for right now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you could have an in-person meeting that is broadcast to the public. This allows the remote meeting. Like, so if the members of the board are in their homes for whatever reason, or in their offices, and they can't conduct an in-person meeting, it allows the remote meeting. Say, knock on wood, the Delta variant makes us, close down again, heaven forbid, but that they would have the ability to do the remote meeting that would then be broadcast.
So just to jump in on that, Casey, there is some confusion. Under the current law, what it says is if you're going to meet by video conference, it's kind of interesting the way it's worded because it was done years ago, that if I'm a council member and I'm appearing by video, wherever I appear by video has to be open to the public. So literally, if I'm on video from my home, the law says your home should be open to any member of the public that wants to be a part of this. So that's kind of one weird glitch in the law. And I've seen conflicting opinions as to whether the whole board under current law could meet by video, or a majority of the board must be in person and other people can appear by video if necessary. So this may help clarify some of that, but.
Yeah, it's a lot better, lot clearer in regard to what the impact is, and it provides the reason why it's necessary, because I couldn't figure out why it was necessary to begin.
Right. Anyone else have a question?
One of the things that goes into that also is this whole issue of notice and so forth, because what I found here in this county is that the legislature actually is more transparent on video than it is, because in person they go into a party caucus and you don't know anything about what's going on. In video, they don't really do that as much, and so therefore it's actually more transparent. It's more beneficial to do it on video, but they don't allow public comment in this county anyway, so.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask, how prevalent is the lack of public comment? I know that it's not required, but my understanding is that most.
I think 90% of places do it, but it's interesting in the city of Buffalo, the Buffalo Common Council and the county legislature, you cannot speak at their regular meetings. The Buffalo Common Council will let you speak at committee meetings, but you can't address the full council at a full meeting. The county legislature won't let you speak at the full meeting, and they claim they'll let you speak at committee meetings, although I've requested and been denied. So I think most places do it. I think the bigger you kind of get, the less it kind of happens somehow. Like Buffalo and Erie County Legislature are the two biggest municipalities in Erie County, and they don't do it.
Now, why do you think that is? Do you think it's because do they feel like it would just be get out of hand because of the size, or like?
I think because of the size. I think because of the size, council members. I've asked just one council member. He said, "Oh God, we'll be here all day." Now you can put a limit on it. Some places put a limit on it for a half hour, and they'll do it. I think in Monroe County Legislature, they do public comment for like an hour, hour and a half. But it can make for a longer meeting. The other thing is the Buffalo Common Council meets at 2 p.m, which is another, issue altogether. So I think it's just the length and how many people will come. And we're going to have nights where it's a hot issue and 300 people want to speak.
Yeah.
It's interesting because usually when there's the hot issue and 300 people want to speak is the only time that they do get to speak. Where when there is no hot issue, they want to come into a meeting and get done in 15 minutes and leave, or say half an hour and leave with no discussion. And and it does depend upon the board. I'm not casting everybody in the same net, but down here, They used to, before the pandemic, they used to have a period in which the press could ask questions after everything was all taken care of. In other words, after we've done all our business, now you can ask the question as to, why are you doing this? When the pandemic came along, they stopped that entirely. And I don't know if they're going to renew that at all or not. But that was the only discussion. The only other way was if you had made a special request to be on the agenda, and it was entirely up to the chairman of the board as to whether in fact that happened or not.
Yeah.
Your comment about the press reminded me of the one criticism of the bill that I've gotten, and Paul, you noticed this too, was from the Daily Gazette. It was a reporter or their editorial board came out against it because they felt that it's important for reporters to be in the room, and so remote meetings are just not a good thing. And actually, my legislative director is a former reporter, and he said, you know what, reporters often don't go to meetings, and any good reporter worth his salt has the phone number of the people, the town board members or the supervisor or the people involved, and can follow up after the meeting, or they do their legwork before the meeting. So as a reporter, he felt that it was really
Yeah, I think it's better for reporters, even especially most newspapers are underfunded, understaffed. I think you can cover meetings, remotely.
Yeah, that's the other thing he said. Yeah, you can cover a whole lot more. It's been great for reporters.
Another thing too is that one of the phrases that we've heard lately is this term proactive disclosure, and as a journalist, but someone who's also involved in governance, that I don't like it as a journalist when I have to ask them questions afterwards. It means you didn't answer the question while you had the chance. These people should know what is relevant and what is not. And if they're not saying these things during the meeting, they're hiding something and they know it, or they're just stupid.
I would agree with Joe.
Let me hear what Maria has to say. Go ahead, Maria.
Well, just briefly, I think I tend to agree with Joe, because after the fact, if Joe is the journalist and I'm at a town meeting and he asks a question, his question might be more astute than my naive knowledge, and then I could follow it up with an answer. And also for Assemblywoman Mrs. McMahon, I just had a question. When you're saying video conferences, you're talking about like a town board, 9 people, 6 people, whatever, all being on a video conference. Is that what the law that you're proposing is about?
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a mechanism in there for anybody, John Q. Public, to ask a question as you would at a regular meeting for a public comment, or no?
Not in my bill. That would be in the Amy Paulin bill, the other one. It has to do with,
Although it doesn't preclude them from doing.
no, it doesn't.
This doesn't mandate them to do so.
Right, because the open meeting law generally doesn't.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I would just note that there's a huge reason why there should be public comment, or at least the opportunity to question. Down here in Allegheny County, the Board of Legislators do not provide information. In fact, no one provides information unless you make a written request. And they answer the request in writing by email. And then there's all sorts of questions that they generate because the answer is not clear. And you can go around for days and weeks and still not have an answer. And so you don't, it's mentioned. I've been a reporter in the past also, and also in a government official. And I've never experienced that at all previously, where nobody wants to talk. It's all bottled up, or appears to be all bottled up, and we come out to vote, and that's about all we do. And so the meeting's over. I don't even know why they meet twice a month, because all of the action as a whole could be wrapped up in probably one resolution of concurrence that we pass everything that we've already talked about. So there is a good, at least the press would be able to ask a question, as part of the public.
Mhm.
where now they don't necessarily get any opportunity to do so.
Mhm.
All right, well, I want to thank the Assembly member for joining us, and certainly we're always looking for legislators to champion causes, so we may be bugging you in the future with some ideas. And we'll keep an eye on your bill and hope that things move forward.
Thanks. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the summer.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks so
you.
much. Bye.
Bye. So the next item on our agenda is new business. Does anyone have any new business they want to bring up?
I had just a question, you know me. The question is, there's an entity known as the New York State Thruway Authority,
Yeah,
and nobody seems to know who's in charge. Um, They have these toll bills that they send you, and now they've got a new thing. You can go use the toll once to go to Grand Island, and you have to pay. Now they've raised the price, I guess, from $1 to $1.24. Nobody told me. And then you get an administration fee of $2. Now, the issue that I have is, first of all, you can't find out who's in charge. It's a customer number. You speak to a person, they have no clue who's in charge. They will offer a supervisor to get back to you in 2 days. There's no contact person. And if you really wanted to pay this bill in person, there's no place that you can pay it unless you want to go to, I think they told me, Staten Island and Bronx. And so, in other words, used to be the bill would be $1. Okay, so you're sending a bill for $1 using a 55-cent stamp. And if you don't get it there in time, or if it doesn't get there, then you have a $5 penalty, but they usually give you a $50 penalty. And there's no rules and regulations that I can seem to find. And I'm just asking this group, is there a mechanism where you can like get some information? I mean, I don't really want to do a FOIL for all this information, just as a consumer. I just feel like if you live in Grand Island, you pay 9 cents. If you live in Niagara Falls and say that you work in the city, you pay 35 cents. If you live in Tonawanda like I do, or Amherst like you guys do, you have to pay $1. Well, now it's $1.24. But we're all New York State taxpayers, so why is there a distinction? Who decided that I'm going to spend more money to go visit my friends in Grand Island? And there has to be a person in charge, a commissioner or a director or an executive person. Does anybody know how I would find this out?
yeah, I mean, there is, a commissioner or board chair or something of the Thruway Authority.
I don't think.
Marie, I might be able to help you with that. I'm currently working with a subcontractor for Department of Transportation, and we have contacts with the New York State Thruway quite often. I can simply look to see where, maybe get a name and a contact information for you and provide that to you if you'd like.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
And I know Easy Pass, if that's what you're talking about, is all that goes through a private company that sends out the bills and collects and everything.
Well, I don't want an Easy Pass. I used to go to
Okay.
Grand Island quite a bit. I just feel like they're forcing you to do an Easy Pass. Oh, by the way, Easy Pass people don't have this $2 administrative fee. You know what I mean? It's like, you can go to Macy's and pay cash or a charge, but you don't get charged extra because you're paying cash. It's just like this mechanism.
Yeah.
But is this a state agency, Paul?
The
The New York
Thruway
State-
Authority, it's a state authority.
So it's under like the legislature and stuff like that?
Well, it's one of these shadow government agencies that they create,
Okay.
Isn't it a sub division out of New York State Department of Transportation?
It's related to it, but you have the Department of Transportation and then the Thruway Authority. I think they're two separate entities, but
I thought it was a subdivision from the broader New York State DOT.
I don't think so, but I
Probably.
could be wrong. All right, anything else under new business? I see there's also a new name on here I don't recognize, so to put them on the spot, Terry Wavada, I don't know if you want to identify yourself and tell us who you are and your interest in open government. You're muted right now. Maybe Terry is shy or does not want to unmute themselves or doesn't know how. I don't know. All right. Well, I should also send out to people, we have a calendar that we set for the year. And, you know, we did that in January, and I should probably send that out to everybody, which lays out, you know, the different reports, and we kind of have a schedule. So I should share that with everybody along with everyone's email addresses. One of the things we had on our schedule is before COVID, every September, we would do a kind of a speaker event. But my thought is, instead of doing that this September, we've also talked about doing an annual report. We've never done an annual report, but it might be good to do so, just to highlight our accomplishments for the year. So I thought maybe instead of doing a September speaker event, maybe we do something like every March, which ties into when the membership dues are due as well. Maybe every March we kind of do like an annual meeting. Would be done through Zoom, and you know, kind of highlight our accomplishments, maybe give out some awards to recognize some people who've done some good things, you know, different open government champions, whether they're reporters, activists, you know, legislators, whatever the case may be. So maybe doing something like that in March instead of a speaker in September. I don't know what people think about that. Sure, Paul, whatever.
That sounds like a good idea.
Paul, I have another question.
Sure.
Are we gonna have in-person meetings at all with the board, or are we gonna always be on Zoom so that people?
I think
are
it's
not-
difficult to do in-person meetings now that we're statewide. I
I
mean,
agree.
you could try to do both. It's kind of like we were talking about earlier, logistically, to have us in Erie, Niagara at a table with a camera with everybody else, you know, online. I just think it's better for everybody to be online, but.
I agree. I was just thinking that it wouldn't be
Yeah.
feasible to do it now that we've gotten to be so big and important.
Yeah.
It'd be a little commuter time for me.
I mean, when we first went statewide, I was like, all right, I actually mapped this out. I said, I'm going to release a report, and I'm going to do a press conference at 9 a.m. in Buffalo. I'm going to go to Rochester at 11. I'm going to get to Syracuse by 1, and then make it to Albany by 4 and come back home. And now I can just do it all on video. It's incredible. So,
Yes, it is. Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, so our next scheduled meeting is August 12th.
Paul,
Yeah.
Sonia, I know this is new business, but you mentioned something and I thought of our lawsuit. Has the judge given us feedback about where we're
Yeah.
at?
You know, I meant to ask our attorney, for those who don't know, we sued Niagara County last year regarding a denial of a FOIL request, and we won through the University of Buffalo Law School represented us. And the only remaining issue was the law school asked the county to pay attorney fees. And as far as I know, a decision still has not occurred, but I will follow up with Mike to see if he can start bugging them some more. It shouldn't take this long to get a decision from the judge.
But you know, that's Niagara County.
Yeah.
I know they're not the judge, but it's Niagara County judge. And I've read where it's the law that attorney fees are paid. And it's just reprehensible that this is continuing the way it's continuing. This is Niagara County.
Yeah. So our next meeting is August 12th at 6:30. In the past, we have skipped August, but I'm happy to, you know, meet in August as well. We met last August as now that we're doing it by video, maybe it's not as hard for people to come out and do a meeting. So unless people have an objection, we'll do it August 12th at 6:30. And otherwise, if someone wants to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, motion by Sonia. Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Second by Maria. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, well, we used to try to keep our meetings under an hour, but with guest speakers, I think the new goal is an hour and a half, so we've met that. And thanks for participating and hope to see you all next month.
Sounds good.
Take care.